So, when you're sizing up a company's financial health, you look at the usual suspects, right? Revenue, profits, debt. But what if I told you there's often a massive, multi-billion-dollar promise lurking just below the surface? A kind of hidden liability that can totally change how you see that company. Well, today, we're pulling back the curtain on corporate pensions.
All right, here's the game plan. First, we're going to uncover what this hidden promise is all about. Then, we'll get our hands dirty decoding the numbers using a real-world example. After that, we'll see the real impact on profits, figure out how to value a company's risk the right way, and we'll wrap it all up with a practical toolkit that you can use yourself.
So, let's jump right into it with that hidden promise. Why hidden? Well, because as we're about to see, the main financial statements that everyone looks at, they don't always tell the whole story, not even close.
Think about it. A company promises its employees a secure retirement, sometimes decades from now. I mean, that is a huge, huge commitment. And it has a very real and often very large price tag that you won't just find sitting on the main balance sheet. Our mission today is to figure out how to find it and what it really means for the company. Okay, to make this really hit home, let's put on our detective hats. Our case file for today, the 2018 annual report from the Kellogg Company. Yep, we're going to crack it open and see what's really going on behind the scenes and behind the box of cornflakes. All right, so this is it. This table right here, pulled from Kellogg's report, is where all the clues are hidden. Now, I know it might just look like a wall of numbers, but trust me, inside this table is the entire story of Kellogg's pension promise. Let's break it down piece by piece. First up, we've got something called the Projected Benefit Obligation, or PBO for short. Now, the easiest way to think about this is that it's the company's total IOU. It's the grand total of all the retirement payments Kellogg has promised its employees for all the work they've already done. It's the full size of the promise.
And for Kellogg, that number is a jaw-dropping $5.1 billion. Yes, you heard that right, billion with a B. That's the sheer scale of the commitment we're talking about here, and it's just sitting there waiting in the footnotes of their report.
Okay, so if the PBO is this giant IOU, the next logical question is, where's the money to pay for it? And that brings us to plan assets. This is literally the pile of cash and investments the company has actually put aside to cover that promise. Think of it like the money they have in their retirement savings jar.
So, going back to our table, we can see that Kellogg has about $4.7 billion in that savings jar. Now, you're probably already doing the math in your head, right? A promise of over $5.1 billion and only $4.7 billion saved up? Something doesn't quite add up.
And you are absolutely right. That gap has a name. It's called the funded status. It is simply the difference between what's in the savings jar and the total IOU. This is the moment of truth that tells us, right away, if the pension plan has extra cash, or, as we often find, if it has a shortfall.
And there it is, a shortfall of $440 million. That is the hidden liability we've been hunting for. The multi-million-dollar gap that, at the end of the day, the company is on the hook for.
So, we found this hidden liability on the balance sheet. Great. But now for the next question. How can these pension numbers actually warp a company's reported profits, on the income statement? How can they make a company look more or less profitable than it really is?
Take a look at this. These are Kellogg's operating profits, just as you'd normally see them reported. So back in 2017, they posted a profit of almost $1.95 billion. Looks pretty solid, right? But, and there's always a but, this number includes some, let's call it, pension static.
So here's the catch. That big official profit number lumps in things like the expected return on plan assets. And what is that? It's basically a guess about how well their pension investments are going to do. It has absolutely nothing to do with how good Kellogg is at actually making and selling cereal. It's not a part of their core business, and it can seriously cloud the picture.
So what do smart analysts do? They clean it up. They perform a little financial surgery, carefully removing that non-operating pension noise to get to a cleaner number. And if you look at the adjusted figures here, you can see what happens when we filter out all those assumptions. We get a much, much clearer view of how the actual business is doing.
And this, right here, is the mic drop moment. Just look at the 2017 operating margin. The unadjusted, official number was a healthy 15.1%. But after we take out the pension static, the company's true operational margin was just 10.8%. I mean, that is a massive difference. It completely changes how we think about the company's profitability that year. Okay, so we've looked at the balance sheet and the income statement. But what about the big picture? How do pensions affect a company's total value and its risk profile? Well, it all comes down to one simple, powerful idea. You have to treat an unfunded pension just like it's another form of debt.
Now, to measure a company's core business risk, analysts use this thing called unlevered beta. On the left, you see the standard textbook formula. It's fine, but it's incomplete. To really get it right, we need the upgraded version on the right. You can see how it specifically adds the pension obligation and treats the plan assets like a kind of negative debt. This gets us so much closer to the truth.
So what happens when we actually use this more advanced formula? Well, this table compares Kellogg to its big competitors, General Mills and Mondelez, and this, my friends, is where all of our detective work really pays off. This is what gives us an edge.
And here's the big reveal. Look at that bottom row. After all of our adjustments, Kellogg's core business risk, its unlevered beta, comes out to 0.39. And that is actually lower than its competitors. Without doing this deep dive, we would have completely misjudged the fundamental risk of the business. Pretty amazing, right?
Okay, we've covered a ton of ground. So let's pull all of this together in our final section, the Analyst's Final Toolkit. I want to consolidate all of the key steps into something really practical that you can take away and use in your own analysis. All right, here are the 5 key moves to remember. First up, you've got to dig into those footnotes and find the pension's funded status. Second, adjust the operating profit to strip out all that pension noise. Third, and this is crucial, treat any unfunded pension liability as if it's debt. Fourth, recalculate to key valuation metrics to include this new hidden debt. And finally, compare those newly adjusted figures against the company's peers to get a true apples-to-apples comparison. You know, when you boil it all down, this whole exercise really comes down to this one simple idea. The financial statements tell a story, for sure, but the most important parts of that story aren't always on the front page. You have to know where to look, and you have to know how to read between the lines.
And that really leaves us with one final big question to think about. We've uncovered the hidden story behind pensions today, but it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If billions of dollars in promises can be tucked away like this, what other crucial financial stories are just sitting there, waiting for us in the footnotes?